Hello and welcome back to Mask of the Plague Doctor by Peter Parrish with me, Barton. Right, so we're heading back to the laboratory, or laboratory, whichever way you want to pronounce it, it's fine with me. Your boots resonate against the wooden floors as you make your way back toward the cellar laboratory. All else is silence as the three of you digest the aftermath of your meeting with the abbot. Not quite the encounter I'd envisaged, Alice remarks. It seems we have the Sanctuary's blessing to continue our work. Until there are none left to benefit from it, Ryoko says. From where do you dredge this endless optimism? It's standard issue in the Crown's array. Army, he says. Cheerful soldiers perish first. Only the mournful endure. Common knowledge. A nervous pause, then both begin to laugh. Pass beneath the archway leading to the cellar stairs. Ryoko and Alice begin to descend. As you're about to follow, passing sanctuary monk catches your arm. Come with me. There's someone you must meet. Lucia, you ask, recognizing their voice. A familiar smile flashes beneath the hood. The spontaneous... Is this going to be a better use of my time than studying the plague? I promise you this trip may serve your medical interest just as surely as an evening with your nose stuck in potions and books, they say. Gamo, Alice calls from lower down the stairs. Are you planning to join us? I'll meet up later, you shout back. You hear some farewells and acknowledgement as Lucia gives your arm a slap of camaraderie. A wise and bold decision, my friend. You look them up and down, still getting used to their voice emanating from the sombre grey attire of a monk. Even the grey hood is a relatively dour substitute for Lucia's usual plumage. As they guide you by the arm towards the sanctuary entrance, a chilling thought strikes. Lucia, this outfit, didn't what? They reply, then a gasp of indignation. Kill someone for it? I'm not some common murderer, Gamo. Besides, that would leave a stain, and then what else would the disguise be? You sigh with relief. No, Lucy continues, we have costumes in the caravans. It didn't take much adapting. They grin, but thank you for the confidence in my skills and my sense of morality. In the flicker of passing candlelight, you notice that the shade of cloth is indeed slightly off. Back into the streets. You pass by a number of other oblivious monks and find yourself back in the streets of Thornback Hollow. Evening has a bite and the clouds cover the emerging stars. Lucia ducks down an alleyway and beckons for you to follow. This isn't the way to the caravans. Where are we headed? You ask. South, the old quarters. It'll be the clear and good time. And why such secrecy, this disguise? Lucia puts a finger to their lips. Their other arm forms a line across your torso. The round glow of a militia torch pauses at the end of the narrow lane on which you stand, then moves on. There may not be an official curfew issued by you, Doctor, they whisper, but there most certainly is for me and others of my heritage. I don't wish to be accosted nor followed. With another wave of their hand, they instruct you to follow them out of the lip of the alleyway. You do your best to keep up in the gloom as Lucia darts through side streets and slips through gaps between housing. Tiring, you insist on some brief respite. Lucia nods and points to some ruined steps leading down to a basement entrance. You huddle there against the rotting timbers of a scarred, desolate dwelling. "Ready to move?" Lucy asks. You signal your assent, and the two of you clamber back to the level of the street. Backs flat to the building, you turn the corner, right into the path of an oncoming patrol. "Well, well, monk in a mask out for an evening stroll. Strange part of town to find you in." The larger the militia peers at you through misshapen eyes, but their holds their torch, so close that sparks threaten to ignite your garments. Behind them, a third armed guard limps into view, out of breath and in clear discomfort. "Speak up," the taller man barks. "Why are you all the way out here?" Lucia dips her head, keeping the hood low over their face. This isn't the time for a commotion. Matt, Colin and Ply were on a secret quest. No, that's not it. Traitorous and dire warning disease. I tell them I'm a surgeon, sent to look at their companion's limb. "That's so," the taller man says. "Seems a little convenient. How did the word of Lena's malingering even reach you?" "I'm not faking, Fergal," Lena protests, hobbling up to the group and taking the weight off her leg by resting on the pole of her spear. "I know that's what you fancy words mean. Malingering. Well, you certainly weren't in the army," Fergal says. "I bloody was. Battle of Garth." "Garth doesn't even sound like a place." "Shut up, the pair of you." The small man waves the torch around, breaking up the dispute. "How often we get aid from a surgeon? Let him tend to her." "Fine," Fergal says. "Keep the torch close, Nickel. Doctor will need light to see there's nothing wrong." Lena gives him a fierce look and leans herself against some fencing. With her permission, you roll up the muddied leg of her loose breeches. Studying the limb beneath, nothing stands out as damage. You see no cuts or marks, nor any misaligned bones. Lena reports no pain as you press your fingertips to the skin. "As I thought," Fergal says. "We're wasting our time." "Wait," she pleads. "Pain's in the foot. It ain't the leg." "Thought you always said the old battle wound was your leg," Nickel says. I never. That's just what you kept hearing." You instruct her to hold still while you get her boot off. Okay, let's remove her boot. She groans and gasps in pain as you work the leather boot from her appendage. An unpleasant stench of sweat and infected flesh assails you. Several patches of skin have rubbed raw and blood, but these are not the areas most offensive to the senses. Oozing pustules of yellow-black hue run along the arch of her largest toe. Fergal coughs in disgust and backs away, hand across his mouth. Nickel keeps the light of the torch on the repellent scent. Lucia watches from beneath their hood. "Don't suppose any of you stalwart members of the militia are warding off the cold with drink?" you ask. "Want to snare our nerves, eh?" Fergal says, rolling a bottle of dubious liquid your way. Hers, perhaps, but no. It's to stop putrefaction. You select a surgical blade and douse it with Fergal's finest beverage. "This is going to be painful," you tell Lena. "You may wish to bite down on something. If those gloves are leather..." She gives you a fearful nod, removing the garment from her hand. The muffled screams begin the moment your blade slices through decaying flesh. Fergal pales and paces away. As you peel and cut away sections of the toe, Lena's agonized instinct to pull away threatens to topple her over. "Hold her," you yell. Lucia darts forward to keep thrashing patient steady. Despite the difficulty of the circumstances, you do a professional job removing the offending pustules and dead tissue. As best you can, you apply a temporary poultice to the open wound. Lena lets the glove drop from her mouth. She's glassy-eyed and exhausted from the trauma of your work, grimacing still from the vicious sting of the alcohol-soaked cloth, but able to comprehend your instructions. Get yourself home now, but keep weight off the injury. Get someone to aid you, or hop all the way if you have to, you say. Remove the poultice and cover the wound in the clay, or honey if you have it. Give it time to heal. You shouldn't be walking on it for several sun risings. Oh, and find yourself some new boots. They probably started all this. No walking, she says, her breath ragged and pained. I'm militia. They pay us some food. I don't work. I starve. As for boots, guess I'll have to hope someone dies so I can swipe them. You don't have any further answers to give her. All right, well. She stands with the aid of her polearm. Fergal gives her a gentle arm around the shoulder. Might be we could cover for you for a bit, he says. You've still never fought in no war, but those scars will be no joke. Lucia clears her throat. Right, you two, Fergal says. Story checks out. On your way now. Let's follow Lucia once again. Once the militia are out of sight, Lucia sets off again at a gentle run. You follow them across more mud-caked tracks, past houses that have folded in on themselves like dying flowers, hastening along empty lanes, beneath an ascendant moon. The few people you encounter recoil at the sight of your mask, or watch from deep within the shadows of their degraded abodes. Just as your legs begin to burn from exertion, you see Lucia halt and hold up their hand. You look around, half expecting another patrol, but the only noise in the alley comes from your own lungs. Quit thinking back there, they say. They could have turned ugly. You still haven't told me where we're going, or what we're doing, you point out. We're meeting someone. Almost there. They feel their way along the rudimentary wooden boards that constitute the walls of the buildings lining either side of the narrow passage. You see their hand pause in the fur light. You can just about make out a carved sigil, a hand perhaps, though you couldn't swear to that design. Here we go, Lucia says. They raise a fist and knock with a peculiar rhythm. To your surprise, part of the wall appears to peek open, a tiny window in the solid wood. You hear a clandestine voice resonate from inside. Password. Lepidoptera, Lucia replies. More of the wall swings wide. You rush inside. Look beneath the doorway. You stoop under the low door, stepping into the building. The inside is no less dilapidated than the exterior. Beneath your feet, a torn and threadbare rug is cast across wooden flooring, riddled with mould. A dim glow from the upstairs room crawls over the miserable staircase below. He's up there, says the woman guarding the door, pointing to the stairs. She wears a voluminous cloak, but within the textiles folds you see flashes of colour, the garb of the caravan. Lucy gives her a nod. Together you cross the room and navigate your way upward. The handrail has long since rotted away, and it seems the steps themselves are soon to receive the same fate. Treading with care and clasping hands to steady yourselves, you manage to ascend to the floor above. By the light of a single lantern, you can tell this room was once a small attic. A low ceiling almost brushes your head. At the opposite end you see a silhouette, a second cloaked figure, gazing out a tiny circular window. Could have chosen a more convenient location for this rendezvous, Lucia says, removing the hood of their disguise. We've been dodging the mayor's militia all night. I almost fell through those cursed stairs. The cloak swirls as the figure turns. His lost posture is quite at odds with the shabby location. Lucia! A beaming smile across his face, he strides forward and embraces him. And you've brought the plague, Doctor. Excellent, excellent indeed. Is somebody going to tell me what this is all about? You ask. Of course, the man says. I apologize for the secretive nature of this meeting, but you will surely understand when I tell you that my name is Rosalind Corvée. You've gone to a lot of trouble here, so I presume you're important. Lucia, he says with mock disappointment, you do not even inform our friend of my background. I felt they may have undermined the secrecy somewhat, they reply. Rosalind breaks into laughter. Of course, then it is time for those secrets to be revealed. He sweeps his hand in a high arc, striking a dramatic pose. Imagine, if you will, a happy family. The father governs the town of Thornback Hollow as mayor. His partner tends to the gardens, plays host to local nobles, and raises a growing child named Rosalind. The man's face grows sour. But there is another actor in our performance, a scheming, jealous woman named Sybil Blake, passed over for a role on the committee for trade. She grows angry, resentful. Rosalind's hand forms a fist, which he pounds into his palm. This vicious harridan poisons the mayor and his family, seizing the positions as her own. But the child escapes, smuggled from the town by those loyal to the Corvée name. He makes a wide motion, drawing his hands from one point to another. The child is sent abroad, where he finds maturity in a new land, a new culture. Yet still he pines for his birthright. When he has gathered the means to do so, he returns to the town inside a caravan of theatric players, ready to avenge his blood. That's why I brought you here. You can aid us, Lucia says, her voice eager. We had thought the plague would stymie our ambitions, but as a doctor, you can move freely between districts. Speak to whomever you please. You can rally loyalists to Corvée's side. Assuming, that is, we can trust you. Rosalind puts his hands to his lips, where his cloak is held away from his tunic. You see the ornate handle of a dagger. You glance over at Lucia, hoping that the nascent bond between you will extend to their employer. Let's see if you committed anything. Yeah, let's say this one. We don't like Sybil, but that's no reason for us just to go with this person. So our main focus is cure the plague. If you're into that, then we're into you. If you're committed to ending this plague as I, there's our bond of trust. He smiles and looks towards Lucia. How like a physician to respond in this manner? You have seen the false mayor's response to this crisis, have you not? You nod. And the monks of the sanctuary, have they always agreed with your methods? If I know the strictures of this land's deities, I suspect you desire more freedom to implement your medical will, freedom you would have in abundance once I am mayor. The man who would be mayor spreads his arms in welcome, almost spanning the breadth of the attic. Lucia wears a relieved smile. The first fabrics of our trust are woven, Rosalind says. Do not misunderstand me. I am aware we are far from blood-sworn allies, but I sense you are someone who will weigh my designs on the mayoral seat with a fair mind. For now, That is all I ask of you." You offer a gracious response. Lucia stretches and flexes their arms, barely managing to avoid elbowing the wall of the attic. "Since these discussions have proven fruitful, can we please get out of this tiny attic?" Rosalind laughs and motions for you to lead the way back down the worn stairs. Taking care not to put your foot through the frail wood, you make your descent. "Sebelina," Rosalind says, catching the attention of the sentry who gave you entry. "Check outside. Make sure the area is clear of patrols." She nods and departs through the dwelling's main entrance, heading out into the night. Await her report. With no furniture on which to rest, you seat yourself in the remnants of the rug. You're joined by Lucia, who lays out next to you on their back. "Only decent thing about these tedious robes," they remark. "Formidable barrier against dirt." Rosalind remains upright, restless. He paces the floorboards, his leather boots, kicking up miniature plumes of dust. "Since we'll be here a short while," he says, "perhaps I might regale you with a tale or two from my days across the water." With a small groan, Lucia pulls the hood back over the head. "Ignore my hired sword. They have little appreciation for the telling of a gripping yarn." "I have every appreciation," comes a voice from beneath the hood. "The first time." Let's see, what do we want to know? I asked for a story about the mystics of the Tangled Isles. Rosalind is silent for a moment. For a moment you fear your request may have caused some offence. Then recollection crosses his face. "I have not seen the isle myself," he admits, "nor can I be certain that they even exist, outside the imaginations of the acolytes of the courted vanity, with whose work I presume you are familiar. Nonetheless, I once supped with a sailor who claimed knowledge of the place." You notice Lucia sit up. This tale is a new one, it would appear. "She spoke of meeting skeletal figures," Rosalind continues, "forcibly rejecting their own material bodies, yet sustaining themselves still by sheer mental will. They spoke without motion in the lips, able to conjure feelings from naught and pictures without paint." He pauses. "She fled that place with nightmares at her back." The conversation turns to lighter matters in the mystic realm, techniques of mind relaxation, talismans, obscure sex. Listening to such theories enervates your thoughts. "All clear, no patrols," Sebelina says, waving the three of you out through the door. You get to your feet with Lucia and make your way out into the night. "We should part ways," Rosalind says, glancing up and down the street. "Lucia, accompany our masked friend back to the sanctuary. Sebelina and I will take a cautious route back to the caravans. Take care to avoid any unnecessary confrontation." Lucia nods, and your group diverges. "Until we meet again," Rosalind calls back, offering a flourish of farewell. The journey back to the sanctuary proves to be an uneventful affair. You encounter a family of rats and have a narrow escape from the contents of a latrine bucket, emptied in haste from an upstairs window, but of further militia patrols there is no sign. As the moon shines down, you find yourself back beneath a pair of familiar oaken towers. "You took a risk accompanying me tonight," Lucia says. "I thank you for that, and for hearing Rosalind's proposals. I've been his hired sword for some time now. He has his faults, but I believe that with your medical talents and his ambition, this town may yet survive." You thank them for their kind words and bid them farewell. Before they turn to leave, you see them adjust the hood of their robes and smile at you. I hope to see you again, Gamo. Stop by the caravan tomorrow morning, if you'd like. Okay, let's get your century. Okay. You pass through the entrance archway with a mind to seek out Ayoko or Alice, but the hour was late, and the cellar laboratory lies still and deserted. A book sits open on one of the benches. You try to skim over the text, but the only light comes from the torches in the hallway outside, and you find your eyes growing weary and strained almost at once. You straighten up to leave, but your breath catches as you see the outline of two motionless figures at the far end of the room. You shiver and depart with some haste. Returning to your own rooms, you see Alice approach from the other end of the corridor. She clutches a roll of parchment. Her fox mask looks up at you. A memory alights upon your mind, fading with the same rapidity with which it arrives. Gamo, she says, where have you been all evening? Yeah, I tell her everything. You give Alice every detail you can recall from the evening. She listens with polite interest, but some seem preoccupied. Secret meetings, secret wares, I must say, you do live a fascinating life. She holds up the parchment. But remember, you have a plague to cure. Come and see me tomorrow morning. I have something I wish to share with you. Oh, I believe Ayoko said he was looking for you too. Opening the door to your room, you bid her a good night. Gamo, I'm glad I ran into you, she says, tilting your mask upward to reveal a nervous smile. When it seems as if you hadn't returned, I was rather concerned. Covering her face once more, she continues down the corridor. Inside your bed makes irresistible overtures. You've just enough energy to pull off your boots and set your mask aside before giving in to its limited comforts. Your dreams are unsettled and wild. Like all dreams, they dissipate. Okay, the Watchful Crown. You awake to the sound of hard rainfall on the roof of the sanctuary dormitory. There's a damp chill in the room and a thin layer of phlegm stuck in your throat. You stretch, regretting the decision at once as you feel something ache and pull in your neck. Coughing the residue in your throat free, you take a swig of stagnant water from a container by your bed and begin to fumble through a morning routine. Robes on, foul bread consumed, mask retrieved and donned. The sage's benign expression, carved into your wall by hands unknown, oversees it all. You stare at the icon, wondering how many others have sat in your place, few with as many troubles as your own, you hope. Your eyes trace out the outlines of leaves and branches, hewn from the oaken panels with care and delicacy. As you look closer, it appears some of the carving may have been more recent than others. The lines and grooves have been redone and are not yet as weathered as the rest. You touch the patterned surface, wondering what may have lain beneath. You feel a tickling sensation inside the canal of your ears. The ends of your fingertips begin to go numb. A voice, buried and remote, calls from the earth. You cannot make it out. The design reveals nothing more. You let your hand drop back to your side. Steadying yourself against the frame of your bed, you feel the squeeze of anxiety in your chest. It was a turbulent night, you tell yourself. Your senses cannot quite be trusted. Time outside this tight room is what's needed to clear your mind. As the rain continues to patter down above, you consider your options for the morning. Both of your colleagues have expressed the desire to speak with you. Spending more time with Lucia could also retain a useful ally to your cause. This is difficult. This is probably the most difficult decision I have to make so far. So, in terms of the choice, we obviously got three: Alice, Ayoko, and Lucia. Ayoko, I'm going to dismiss. out of hand because we don't feel much. It's kind of all business with Ayoko, and this is more of a kind of friendship or romance or wherever we want to frame it. So I would say it's definitely between Alice and Lucia, and there isn't much between the two. So Alice wants to tell me something, and Lucia just wants to spend time with me. But I'm concerned about the phrase "could also retain." Sounds like we could just lose Lucia if we don't turn up. So what are we going to do? We are going to go with... I'm going to go with Alice, because I'm curious what she has to say. Whereas Lucia, there may be something that happens or something that's said, but this feels like an opportunity to find out a secret. I think the curiosity of that would pull us more than just the desire to spend time with someone. So we're going to go with that. You knock on Alice's door and call her name, but receive no response. Since your colleague's opinion on the Sanctuary archives is that they are a wasteland for anything besides supply entries, you reason that she will likely be in the cellar laboratory. Patting your robes to make sure you're equipped with a ready supply of tools and ingredients for the day's eventualities, you set off to continue your search. The faint smell of candle smoke tells you that somebody is in residence at the laboratory even before you have crossed the doorway. Alice sits at a bench, her back to you, her fox mask glazed to her left. On the right you see the waning flame of a candle experiences final flutters of life. The rest of the room is empty, save for the eerie, ever-present sentinels in the corner. You announce yourself with a soft cough, dislodging the last remnants of mucus that had accumulated there overnight. Alice jumps, almost knocking the mask to the floor, with an expressive flail of her arms. Sorry, you offer as she turns to you and rubs her eyes. Have you been here all night? No, she replies, her voice rasping and dry. A pause. Maybe. Is the sun up? Would be if not for the rain. In that case, yes. She yawns and stretches in the chair, pokes at her unkempt hair and withdraws her hand. I couldn't sleep, at least not in my bed. Seems I can doze fine at this bench. Should I come back later? You ask. No, stay. You're here now. As I said last night, I have something... She sighs and stands. Camel, do you think we're making any progress, any real progress, in curing the way from death? We're trying. Alice makes a noise of exasperation. Not enough. Not nearly enough. If we don't start taking bolder steps to understand the sickness, we're going to fail. Bolder? She gestures at the motionless monks. You should be examining and experimenting on these subjects, in case their disease is linked. I know it's unorthodox, but let history be our guide. Alice taps the open manuscript page on the bench for emphasis. Every one of the lauded physicians of our age had to take risks. We should honor that example. Okay, Let's just throw in with her, because we're making no progress on the disease and it is getting worrying. I agree, we should experiment at any cost, but if he learned of it, the abbot would rescind our welcome. She groans with irritation. No matter where I go, there's always somebody in the way of progress. You lean against one of the branches, sensing that there's more. Alice wants to say. She touches the parchment once more. closing her eyes, as if trying to absorb the text through her fingertips. Rushing into human experiment would be rash, I know, but I can explain this plague. Gamel, I know I can. At present it's like a tunic, before the weaver has finished spinning. Lots of separate pieces, waiting to be joined. I have an idea of the completed shape, but... You see her reaching for the right words. But I can't be sure we have the right pieces or whether we're missing some. And for some moment, we're not searching for ways to sew these pieces together. Oh, for everything. I feel them slipping further apart. You nod, listening. I'm just tired of feeling like I'm being held back. The university doctors were the same. They never trusted me, never allowed me to take a theory or pursue an idea that extra step. She shakes her head. So set in their ways and their old techniques. It's no wonder we insisted on carving people up in the name of bloodletting for so long. Alice looks up at you, a half smile creasing the lines of the TV in her eyes. Is this making any sense, or did I slip into a dream again? I think they're fools to block your best inclinations. You're doing diligent work here. Consider everything. It hasn't gone unnoticed. It's always the way in this profession, probably always will be. Let's go with this one. You're doing diligent work here, considering everything. It hasn't gone unnoticed. A smile blooms. Thank you, Gamel. I know it to be true, but it's good to hear from someone else once in a while. Look, you say, slipping off your mask and placing it beside her own. Instead of lamenting what we can't do or shouldn't do, let's apply ourselves to some studies we can control. That sounds constructive, she says. Hold a moment. The aggravation of our predicament is waking me up, but I need a little something more. Alice walks across to a shallow container, sitting against the wall. Stooping, she reaches in and splashes water on her face. Her gasping reaction tells you everything about the water's temperature. Right, she says, fresh resolve on her face. To work. You spend the rest of the morning hours chronicling the medical observations the two of you have made in Thornback Hollow and referencing your available text for any clear patterns, poring over these words in slow, tedious and necessary work. You're able to discount one or two more obvious ailments, but there is scant sign of any significant breakthrough. As time crawls by, you notice Alice's energy fade. Once her eyelids fall for a third time, you suggest calling an end to the session. She yawns and stretches at her forearm through her robe. You're right. Anything I try to do now would be a mess of mistakes. Then she pauses, her expression grave. I never considered being robbed of sleep, truly robbed of it for days at a time, until Thornback Hollow. My mind is already overclouded, and I'm barely lacking one night's rest. You nod, trying not to dwell too long on the thoughts of that fate. There's a sure sign I need to sleep, she says with a knowing laugh. First I get militant, then I get mournful. Better leave in case it's catching. I offer my hand to help her up. You stand first, presenting an outstretched hand. Alice looks at you, blinks, and exclaims in recognition. Oh, Gamel, thank you. She clasps her free hand in yours, and you help lift her to her feet. Your eyes meet for a second. She glances away, her hands still in yours. As her eyes dart back to meet your own, you feel her pull you closer. Well, this is kind of what Gamel was looking for, so let's meet her embrace. You slip your warm arms around her, feeling the tension in your shoulders ease in a warm embrace. I'm glad you're here, she whispers, releasing her hold, whisking Whiskers and fur are drawn over a parting smile as she slips the fox mask over her face and departs. You feel a gentle swell of elation. Lightening the troubles of the previous day, the pile of parchments and tomes left behind by Alice suddenly seem less daunting to pursue alone. You make it through several dense passages over the course of the next hour, but despite your positive spirits, little else of use is betrayed by their pages. Stuck at an apparent impasse, you pick up your wolf mask and head out of the cellar. The afternoon beckons. Later that day, you find yourself reminiscing about the breakfast you enjoyed at the Mirror's Manor, the potato skins and chunk of black bread that you managed to acquire from the sanctuary kitchens don't quite hit the same spot. As you poke at the bread's unyielding surface, take comfort from the momentary cessation of the rain. Reduced to consuming kitchen scraps, you may be, but at least these scraps aren't soggy. A knock at the door draws your attention away from the bread's almost unnatural density. Who is it? You ask. The door cracks open, and the green hood of a sanctuary monk appears in the gap. Apologies for the disturbance, Doctor. They say, I was told to fetch you. There's a rider from the Baron Moreland outside. Says she needs to see the physicians. The Baron? You stash the bread away for later study. Pick up your mask and accompany the monk out to the sanctuary entrance. As you emerge from the building and head toward the main archway, you see Ayoko and Alice are already present. The Baron's one and only horse grazes on some nearby grass, tended by a woman you recognize from outside the encampment. She acknowledges you as you approach. Ah, the one in the wolf mask. I remember you. Likewise, you reply. Ria, wasn't it? Last time we met, it was at the end of your raid. Mere sentry no longer, she says, standing taller in her black and yellow tabard. You are now looking at the Baron's personal messenger. And what is the Baron's personal message? Oh, sorry, okay. And what is the Baron's personal message? Ayoko asks, since we're all here. Ria clears her throat, and with elaborate ceremony unfurls a piece of parchment. Baron Osbert Moreland demands that one of the physicians assigned to the outbreak in Thornback Hollow attends him at a certain encampment, whereupon a report on the ongoing plague will be delivered to his lordship, she says. I've been conducting research all night, Alice says, holding back a yawn beneath her mask. I'm in no condition to parley with the Baron. Before he can look his way, Ayoko already has his hands up to reject the suggestion. It's in nobody's interest to have me engage in diplomacy with that pompous oaf, he insists. You suspect he's correct. Sounds like I'll be travelling with you then, Ria says as she pats the horse. She glances from you to the animal's saddle, then back again. Is there a hierarchy for... That is, does a doctor outrank a messenger or... How about this? I get to feed it some grass, then you can ride. That sounds like a fine compromise, she says, gesturing for you to get started. The horse chuffs and shakes its mane as you approach. You gather up a handful of dry grass, kept somewhat sheltered from the rain by the sanctuary archway. Holding it out, you allow the horse to nibble on the longer stems. That's a fine way to lose a finger, Ayoko calls out. Fortunate, I know a surgeon, you shout back. He laughs. And Ria swings herself up over the horse's back. Taking the reins, she begins to steer the animal back toward the town thoroughfare. Remember, Alice says as you pass, you're our representative out there. We're counting on you. You promise to do your best, then bid them both farewell. hooves displaced wet earth as you follow the main street towards the southern gate of Thornback Hollow. You're aware of more people outside of their homes today. They gather at the corner of lanes and in the mouth of the valleys. The red sashes of gilded timber are in abundance. So, messenger, you say, looking up at Rhea. Last we spoke, you were on guard duty, mostly guarding mud, if I recall. I was guarding the entrance. Not everyone gets the entrance shift. It's quite prestigious, she insists. I was reliable, which is why I'm trusted with the horse. And with messages, you add. Well, the previous messenger went missing. They probably aided my appointment. Missing? Fled, most say. His expression is solemn. Don't mean to belittle the problem you have in town, but there's friction in camp, hunger, sickness. Though not your waking death, thank the deities. Some people can't stand it. They think desertion's the only way. Not always an option, you remark, looking to the walls in case of town. No, she says, pondering something. You travel on past the slopes of the Barrow and the hilltop manor of the Mere. Gatehouse stands before you, home to tireless, grinding mechanisms, powerful enough to haul open the doors to the outside. To freedom, wherever temporary, you feel a flutter in your chest at the prospect of passing through. Ever feel like taking flight yourself, you ask? Just digging in your heels and galloping off into the forest. I'm going to pretend you never asked me that, she says. For both our sakes. The shadow of the gatehouse falls upon you both. Both the militia hail your attention. Rhea reasserts her credentials, and the levers and cogs begin to turn. Step inside your face. You follow the trail up the ridge back towards the Baron's encampment. The weather remains dour, and the stark branches of the winter oaks in the basin below seem to wilt beneath its stubborn grey monotony. Beside you, Rhea's horse clumps a steady path. As you close in on the rows of canvas tents, the land around you grows even more barren. Every scrap from the surrounding fields has been picked clean. In the furrows and trenches you find yourself trudging across. Nothing grows, all is bare, save for a lone tree or fence post that would once have marked the outskirts of peasant farmland. One of the trees holds the hanging remains of a corpse. The rope turns in the light breeze. A slow rotation, as if the wind were insistent on displaying the grim spectacle in full. You see the word thief gouge into the bark above. I was there when he was caught, Rhea says, grimacing. Dreadful. Let's see. Desperation would turn most deaf. It may be so, she says in thought. I hope never to be forced to find out. You make the rest of the short trip to the edge of the camp in silence. As you get close enough to the tents to see the Baron's crest stitched upon their canvas sides, you're halted by a man you do not recognise. He carries a jagged hand sigh and wears a crooked straw hat. Beneath, he is dressed in the camp livery of black and yellow. See you haven't killed a horse then? He sneers at Rhea as she dismounts. Shame, he continues. Would love a slice of that plump beast. The man licks his scabbed lips and creeps closer, stooping to peer at the animal's flanks. Rhea steps beneath them. The horse shuffles and stomps to the ground. Let us pass, Laggett, you tosser, she snaps. All right, no need to get testy, he grins. He grins back. Just thinking ahead for when things get competitive. I'd be sure to let the Baron know your intent to eat his last horse. He frowns and spits on the ground. No call for that, no call at all. Are you allowing us in or not? It's me. Are you allowing us in or not, you ask. Get into it, he says, shrugging. With his head he motions down the road to the hangman Hope you saw our warning. Hands to yourself when you're inside the camp, and you swing until the precious mask of yours pops off. No stealing, you say. Fine. Then don't tarry any longer. In the serve sweep of his arms, Laggett gestures you to move along. Rhea scowls at him as you pass. He doesn't notice. Too fixated on the rump of your horse. You can be in with the Baron. Short time later, you arrive beside the Baron's tent. The grand flag that displays Morland's falcon heraldry hangs loose against a pole, bedraggled and limp. Even the tent itself appears faded. This is where we part, Rhea says. I don't know what the Baron wishes to say to you, but I pray it will lead to our redemption, us and Thornback Hollow. She strokes the horse aside and begins to lead it away. For all our sakes, he says, turning back. Please find a cure. You offer what reassurance you can and watch as he passes out of sight. Summoning your resolve, you stride forward and present yourself to the 2 armed guards outside the tent. Papers, one says, with the barest flinch of acknowledgement. You dig out the old letter and summons from your robe. Sad, torn, but still displaying the official seal of Baron Osbert Morland. The guard looks it over and nods to her colleague, who ducks through the tent flap. Your letter is returned to your hands. You wait, listening to the voices emanating from inside. You regard the remaining soldier. Ever serve with a man named Ayoko Tai? You think you see a slight twitch in her left eye, but you can't be sure. She gives no other indication of her even having heard your question. Send him in, bellows a voice you recognize as the Baron's. As a colleague reappears from the tent, the guard makes a subtle motion for you to enter. The inside of the tent has a faint odour of sweat. Morland is seated behind the same wooden table, looking more dishevelled. His greying beard is lank, and there are deeper hollows in his pointed features. The papers strewn across the surface before him appear in even more disarray than your last visit. Okay, I think that's where we're actually going to leave it. It's kind of a getting back and talking to him, kind of a good stopping point. So I hope you've enjoyed, hope you're keeping safe right there, and hope to see you next time. Goodbye. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, maybe consider hitting the subscribe button there on the right, or checking out some other videos here on the left, or perhaps you might even share with some friends.